You are listening to episode 35 of Mitolife Radio. I'm your host, Matt Blackburn, and today I'm speaking with Dr. Cass Ingram. Had him on the show once before where we focused on the vegan diet and the detriments and potential downfalls of that kind of a lifestyle. And in this episode, we're actually focusing mostly on oregano. We also go into a lot of other subjects. We hit on the CBD industry. We talk about pine resin, spruce resin. We talk about Candida, fungus, skin conditions, dental. It's a really well-rounded episode, but it kind of all circles back to oregano. But I really love the parts about the tree resins and the gums. Those are really interesting compounds to me, so you guys will love this one. Enjoy. Dr. Cass, welcome back to the show.
Nice to be back. How you been getting along?
I've been doing great. I'm
Staying
loving
out
all
of
your
wilderness and all the ticks and mosquitoes and spiders and all kind of weird stuff. Or
staying away from Lyme. Yeah, I'm
Good.
doing my best. Yeah, in the last interview, people really loved it. We talked about the dangers of veganism and the importance of protein for
Yeah.
hydrochloric acid and fat-soluble vitamins, all that good stuff. And we just kind of scratched the surface on oregano, and you're Mr. Oregano. So I definitely wanted to kind of dive into that and
yeah.
kind of focus on
Well,
that.
we did talk about those things, and certainly one of the dangers of wrong diet or imbalanced diet can be fungal infection. That's one of the enormously underestimated issues. And there are other elements. We talked about Lyme, vaccine viruses, but I'm just finishing a book called The Infection Connection, and I have had started this about 2007. So I don't know, I've been dabbling, and it's been a difficult book to write, but I should have it done in calendar 2019, the first 300-400 copies. So it is definite that this infectious element is causing chronic disease. And so you could be fiddling away with taking 101 supplements or different diets, but if you don't clean out the infection, you're still going to be sick like a dog. That's kind of what the book talks.
That's awesome. And we're talking viral, fungal, bacterial, kind of all of it.
That's pretty much it. There's a
Mhm.
lot of section on parasitic, but there's a tremendous problem with fungal infestation with the chronic disease. And then you have, like you mentioned, the viruses that are introduced from the vaccines, but you have herpes virus, you have the wart virus, the condyloma, the genital warts. So you have the sexually transmitted viruses, but then you have the chronic fatigue ones that people get hepatitis. They get hepatitis C, B, hepatitis A from contaminated food and water. They end up with these chronic fatigue type syndrome viruses and mycoplasma, which is intracellular. It's not more of a in between a bacteria and a virus. But you have the Epstein-Barr virus, for instance, and so then you have a variety of viruses that can cause infection of the brain and spinal cord. And you have the SV40 from the vaccines that are such terrible contaminants that so many of our diseases, leukemia, especially lymphoma, bone cancer, sarcoma, brain cancer, have this infectious virus. How are you going to get somebody well if you suppress the immune system? They've got an infection. So you go in with the chemotherapy and the radiotherapy and the methotrexate and the immunosuppressive drugs and the radiation, and you shove it all down to the ground. What good did you do? I mean, the infection just goes, and tears the tissues up even more. You give it free reign, right?
Yeah, and you mentioned STDs. I'm actually speaking with a woman. I've talked with people that have herpes simplex for years, and they say a lot of the STDs are incurable, right? But I don't really believe that.
Well, they're difficult, but the oregano is a solvent. If you get the edible kind, you get the totally edible, wild, not farm-raised monkey business, and you could pound it. You could take, like, let's say you have this infestation, your life is ruined, you can't do anything. You can't even think straight because you've got billions and trillions of genital herpetics, or the HPV viruses inside the womb, inside the fallopian tubes, inside the male organs, inside the ovaries, inside the vaginal tract, and then inside the nervous system. It hides in the sacral plexus, in the different ganglia, we call them. Inside there, it's hiding. So you've got it. So you can't even operate as a female or a male, with your loved one and what have you. And imagine married couples are having terrible outbreaks, and one is maybe had the problem before they got married, then the other one gets it, and there are indiscretions. And you go and they go mess around and then come into the house and mess with the wife or husband. So people come to me and say, well, I'm hopeless. And so of course, what am I going to do? I make him drink the oregano oil by the bottle. Where's the bottle of that? Some kind of bottle. I just make him, take dropperful after dropperful after dropperful, 5 dropperfuls 3 times a day. You see what I mean?
Yeah, and that's approach. People are afraid of high dosing it, but you've said a lot in interviews. That's one of the major questions I get from my friends about oregano. Like, isn't it going to kill the gut bacteria, or isn't it going to be a stress on the system? Or
well, what's killing you? Is it the vaccine viruses, the SV40, or some miserable herpes, or genital wart virus? Or Epstein-Barr or hepatitis? It's killing you. So what are you worried about oregano for? I mean, it's a pizza spice. It's in the mountains growing wild. How could it hurt anybody? And when's the last time anybody dropped dead from taking wild oregano oil? In the last 4,000 years. Because they say the Earth's 4,000 years old. I'm not going to argue, but let's just say there's not even one case, right? But by the time this show's over, we'll have 1,000 corpses on the slab from drug therapy. People are afraid of their shadows. I don't know what to do. All I can do is just, punch him in the nose and get him to wake up here a little bit. I mean, whatever God made, you're going to take poison hemlock? Are you cuckoo? But what the natural things like turmeric or black seed or oregano or whatever, the garlic or onion. What if there was a case of a guy who had amoebic abscess in his liver, and he had a multitude of those abscesses. So the Swedish doctor prescribed 25 cloves of raw garlic a day. So he took the 25 cloves, and that's not necessarily the easiest thing on the stomach, but it's not going to kill you. He took them. And out of his stool poured pus. He had actually killed the amoeba and went through the detox, and then the cysts are involuted. But it took he couldn't have got it done with a clove a day. You know what I mean? And the same with genital herpes. Oh, I like oregano oil, but I only take 2 or 3 drops. That's strong enough. Well, forget it then. You'll have the herpes until the day you die. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And with oregano, it doesn't really hit the macro, the big worms, right?
It's here. Okay, so the studies show that that spices, there's an intelligence with the probiotics and the microbiome, so that you might lose 5% of the mass, which is still significant, but you're not going to kill them all. And they get a resilience to the oregano. They get a resilience to the garlic and onion. It could push them down, they come back. But you don't get this problem with MRSA or drug-resistant enterococcus or drug-resistant Candida. I mean, at least you don't get that. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And for transdermal use, you've talked about the clavicle rubbing it in and the foot. And
I talked about the fact that one way you could accentuate the destruction of the pathogens is to take the oil. Where's some? I don't know. Let's take the oil, and you take the drops, and you rub the clavicle. Above the clavicle is where the lymphatic thoracic duct and the right lymphatic duct dump. And if you can just keep rubbing it in there at night and around the clavicles and upper chest, maybe on the shins, the feet, if you want, the top of the thighs, you'll get a nice additive effect. so that some people don't necessarily, oh gosh, I'm tired of taking all this internal stuff in capsules. So you can get it into the lymph that way, That's good.
That's awesome. I've rubbed it on my feet before in the sauna, and it almost had like a flushing reaction. It was really intense, and it lasted about a half hour after my whole
Well,
body was kind of lit up.
we have too many of these vaccine viruses and the stealth pathogens and Lyme bacillus, different cell wall deficient organisms. And if we've taken a plethora of antibiotics or cortisone or H2 blockers, we develop these mutated germs in our body. So they're resident. And so now you're starting to take the oregano oil, or you might have dental infections or root infections or root canals. And you're taking the oregano oil, and all of a sudden you're upsetting the apple cart of homeostasis within the infection, where the body is accustomed to it, and you're pounding away at it. So you could go through some detox or some flushing or some reactions because you're taking in a substance that's so powerful it can sterilize sewage water. Now, a lot of people say, well, I take oregano oil and I take this brand. Okay, take whatever you want. It's a free market, but the only wild one left is the original one. The P73. It's 1,000% wild. It's always high mountain Mediterranean wild. It's never farm raised. When we did the gas chromatography, some people are complaining they weren't getting that good of results that they expected or that I had published. So I gas chromatographed 30 brands, and I found maybe 80% are farm raised, my friend. But why would anybody? I mean, oregano only grows on rocks in the wild, up to 12,000 feet above sea level. It hates trees. It despises soil. And now you clone it in a greenhouse. You inject the stalk with bacteria to jack the carvicle up artificially. And then you plant it, and you use Roundup if it's not organic, or you avoid the pesticides and herbicides if it's organic, and you patent it. And then you harvest it, distill it, and sell it on the open market as 80% carvacrol. I mean, this is going on continuously in the marketplace. And I've tried those. I don't like them. I'm not taking them.
And the carvacrol is the active ingredient, but there's a plethora of other constituents, right, that you would find in the wild versus the cultivated.
That is correct. The hemp has 1,000 biological chemicals, and now, we're going to make CBD. We'll isolate it, butane extract it, acetone wash it, alcohol extract it, distillate it until we get a few active ingredients. We just get rid of the 800 active, 900 active. Who cares? I care. I think a knowledgeable, intelligent, shrewd herbalist would care that it's the wholesomeness, the full spectrum. So with the oregano oil, it is important. There are 30 to 33 active ingredients. Sometimes if the carvacrol level rises, certain high mountain species will produce a bit of higher carvacrol. And sometimes it's as low as 25 active ingredients, up to 33. Now, when we did the gas chromatography, and all of those working synergistically, the terpenes, the beta-caryophyllene, the rosmarinic acid, the caryophyllene oxide, the linalool, the limonene, the pinene, and the carvacrol. And our analysis showed that the really wild one that I take and that I think you take is 30 to 33 active ingredients. They have one called Orega Ultra, and I don't, meant just to mention brand names, but just for the sake of your listeners. And that one is a rare type of wild oregano that grows 10,000 feet to 12,000 feet. And those pockets produce carvacrol of 84%, 84 to 85. So that's good for somebody that wants that extra carvacrol pressure on the biofilm, like for Lyme and biofilm producing germs. Carvacrol is the best for that. But when we did the gas chromatography, we saw the incredible. Some of the products only had 7 active ingredients, 8 active ingredients. Some of them had carvacrol levels of 95%. Impossible in nature.
Jeez.
Yeah, impossible.
Is it possible to grow this in like a greenhouse, or do you have to have like specific conditions, high elevation, all that?
They forced it now. We used to take the wild oregano seeds and try to grow it in pots, and it wouldn't grow. But The biological scientists have created, patented, reproducible wild oregano. Some of it's marjoram species, but they actually inject the stalks and select. They inject them with bacteria, and they select out the high carbochol biotypes, and then they grow those in a greenhouse, and then they put them on the in the fields. So they
Wow.
somehow figured it out. And they tried to
Wow.
get me involved in this. I don't know if you know this, but a major university in the East Coast solicited me in 1997 and said, "Come on, Ingram, get off the wild oregano track. Come join us. We're producing genetically engineered," is what they said, GMO. Their words, GMO altered oregano, rosemary, and sage, which we grow by injecting the stalk with Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and then we force the active ingredients up. See how smart we are. And it just doesn't, I don't know. I mean,
It's like Darth Vader.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
You weren't tempted.
They think they're God. They think they're
Yeah.
smarter than God. But why did God put in the synthetic process those other 25 or 30 active ingredients? Some of them are potent antioxidants. Some of them are neuroregenerative. Some of them help control the pain response. Some of them block the COX-2 receptors. Some act as natural opiate-like substances. Don't take them out.
Yeah, and I think in one of your books, I'm obsessed with royal jelly, kind of like you are, and you talk about the undiscovered nutrients or compounds in
3% of
foods.
the active
Mhm.
ingredients of royal jelly cannot be synthesized or known. And black seed oil, 2%. And there are some
Wow.
unidentified components in oregano oil also. So
And when they GMO it, you probably lose those, I would
you do
imagine.
lose
Yeah.
them. And
Mhm.
so a lot of people are worried that I'm spreading misinformation, but I got the letter overnight by the university in the East Coast. I'm not going to mention them. And they had a deal going with a big biopharmaceutical company, and they wanted me to be the agent to promote the end product that they produced. I refused to be involved, but they specifically taught me what their technology was in the overnight letter, and this is exactly what it is. A genetically engineered Pseudomonas is injected into the clones, into the biotypes in a greenhouse. Unfortunately, and then that forces the carbachol. They said, "See how smart we are? The 60% carbachol plant is forced into 85% carbachol, and it refuses to make anything else. And so we control the process, and then we raise it and end up distilling it and selling it on the open market." So, and they have patents online for that. So I just think everybody should know that and not support it. Yeah, I appreciate that you see that something says 80% or 90% or whatever, 95%, but it's not coming from the wild. And we want to now when we support the wild oregano, we're supporting whether it's 70% carbachol is irrelevant. 85%, okay, a little bit better, but still effective. Even 60% is plenty effective. We're supporting 270 village co-ops in the mountains there who are dependent on us, dependent on our selling through their wild oregano and not buying into the farm raised hype. So
Wow. And their kind of motivation there is to lower the price, right? Because the wild stuff is kind of limited, it's more handcrafted,
yeah,
whereas the greenhouse stuff they're making, they could kind of mass produce it and bump the price
they
down.
did. They
Right?
apparently
Hmm.
are selling it on the open market for a cheap enough price. So you'll see a 50. So you might see some oregano oil for 25 or $40, which is, by the way, if something's good to support cold and flu and bronchitis and asthma and chest congestion, intestinal problems, and prevent food poisoning and prevent chest infections during the winter, it's probably worth 30 or $40 when you think about it. And you're only taking 2 or 3 drops at a time for most cases, but there are some that are $20, and those are usually the farm raised. Some that are $15, generally farm raised, but I can appreciate it. It's free market, and if you want to buy the cheaper stuff, go ahead. I just don't. I don't like the tinny kind of artificial taste of the farm raised, and I've had numerous patients complain of headaches, cardiac arrhythmia, chest pain, intestinal reactions from, even though carbapenem is still natural, even though it's a natural clone, they're reacting to it for some reason.
It's kind of like CBD, right? You were talking about that earlier versus the whole crude like hemp, because people are getting reactions even from poorly processed CBD
Well, we
products,
had
right?
a
And they're
case
taking
where a whole health food store on that note got sick with migraine headaches, and we traced it to butane residues from the CBD. It was a new fangled CBD company, and the butane poisoned the clerks. I don't know why people get into this. They get hyped into it. We should really do our investigation. When it comes to oregano oil, we should be taking wild oregano oil. It should have 25 to 33 active ingredients. We don't care how much carbapenem it is. If we want the higher carbapenem, let's buy it, but let's make sure it's wild oregano and it's not. Right now, unfortunately, there are synthetic carbapenem being added to a number of supplements on the open market. And so I would beware of that. That's all. Now, on the wild oregano itself, you were asking about the side effects and high doses. If you're taking the daily use wild kind, if you need the high doses, it's not an issue. If you have a probiotic challenge, take more probiotic while you're taking it. That's all. Nothing complicated.
I
What if you
love it.
had Lyme disease? What if you had Epstein-Barr, Hep C? It's an incurable disease, or genital warts or herpes genitalia. You would want the high doses. Don't play with it. Beat it, beat it back. Punch it in the schnoz. Knock it down for the count. Now, I'm not a very athletic guy, but
Yeah, there's a lot of education that goes into dosing with supplements, and it feels like everyone's confused. I don't care like what supplement it is. It's like they're either not taking enough, like K2, or they're taking too much,
well,
or
here's the
whatever. It's
problem
like,
you have. If the supplement is synthetic or semi-synthetic, maybe you could take too much. So, for example,
mhm.
somebody's taking D3, right? Is that commonly discussed? Right? Vitamin D, either as a spray or drops, correct? Or capsules, right?
Mhm.
Vitamin D by itself. The challenge is it's cholecalciferol and it's produced from sheep's hide, cow brains, pork hide, and sheep lanolin. And so when they make it semi-synthetic, it's not naturally occurring, it's too powerful. Their biosynthetic process makes an isolated molecule. And when you take 50,000 or 20,000 or 10,000 or 5,000 IUs, you develop uh, renal lithiasis. You actually develop kidney stones or bladder stones. This is common. It's a pandemic. No one's discussing. I'm the only one talking about it. Everybody's afraid. Oh, we don't want to upset that market. Oh, we're selling a lot of vitamin D3. Well, I don't prescribe it. So instead, I will prescribe eating cod livers or taking polar power or eating or having a really good cod liver oil, but I prefer the polar power, fatty salmon oil from the head of the sockeye salmon, or eating more sardines or eating more egg yolks. That's kind of how I deal with that, and getting more sunlight.
Yeah,
But
that's
not,
what I like about you. You promote whole food supplements. There's a big difference, right?
well, what am I supposed to do if a patient says, "Hey, doc, I got a kidney stone the size of a football ever since you told me to go on that vitamin D." First of all, I don't want to deal with that. Second of all, I don't like hurting people. It doesn't make any sense. So above all, do as much harm as you can. Is that the Hippocratic oath? What are we doing here? It says, above all, don't hurt anybody. And then if you believe in God and you think you're going to be responsible, and you believe that you're going to be held accountable for your actions, why would you want to kill anybody? Even if you're a doctor, you have no business. I mean, accidentally things happen, even in medicine. Maybe you make a misdiagnosis, maybe you didn't get it quite right. You try your best, the patient abused themselves, and they die on the table. It happens. But not repeatedly killing people with pharmaceutical agents or chemotherapy, radiation, just for a buck. That's a different deal.
Yeah, it seems like willful ignorance. Like they know they're ignorant and they're happy with it because they're making money, and there's just the Merck manual, and that's how they kind of operate. And they
Yeah,
don't understand the interconnectedness of the liver and the thyroid and the adrenals and all these
no, they don't
complex
understand. Don't
relationships.
understand and don't appreciate the subtle nuances of the human body and the delicate nature of the human existence and how you can upset the chemistry readily. Opiate crisis. They don't even know how many corpses we have from just simple opiates. Some people taking it recreationally, the majority of them taking it medicinally, and then they become addicted and habituated. So that's just one drug alone. You saw that Johnson and Johnson got pinged for $500 million. It should have been probably 40 billion, but there, if the $500 million cash to come up with tells you how draconian their methodology must have been, that they encouraged continued prescription despite knowing that these opiates were destructive to the people. I mean, I know
Mm.
when I was in my training, I've made my mistakes and so on, but I don't. I learned from them, and I wouldn't willingly want to hurt anybody. I think that's
Yeah.
where the medicine has to go. Where, look, if you've done some surgeries that were unnecessary, if you prescribed some medications that have hurt people, if you've injected vaccines and saw children die of SIDS right in front of your hands, why don't you learn from it and just not quit doing, not continue to do it, to
Makes sense to me.
knowingly hurt people. Now, that's a different deal.
Yeah. Well, on that
I'm
note,
not going to do that. When I told you to take
yeah,
high dose oregano oil or high doses of black seed oil, I can guarantee you nobody's going to get hurt.
yeah. What are your thoughts on depression and anxiety? Because I have some people that are looking for solutions, and a lot of people go to CBD or something like that. And I know we might be going a little off from oregano, but there could be a infectious component to these mood
Well,
disorders
I had
that
a woman come up to me and she shuffled up to me after a lecture and she said, "Doctor, I have chronic depression. I'm on Prozac. I've been on medication for 30 years." I said, "Stick out your tongue, lady." And she had the most fulminant Candida albicans I've ever seen. So I said, "You don't have depression. You have fungus itis. And we've got to clean that fungus out, and then the depression will lift." So anxiety could be viral, could be adrenal, it could be uh, fungal also. So usually with anxiety and depression, there's excess sugar consumption, which depletes the B vitamins, which causes the fungal elements to overgrow. In chronic depression, you can have hypothyroidism, and hypothyroid patients do have fungal overload. They have a low body core temperature, they develop it. In the case of adrenal gland exhaustion, where you get the anxiety, if you have the anxiety and adrenal weakness and a little ache right here above the kidney, that could mean that the adrenal glands are infected by fungi or tuberculosis. An autopsy is done in the 1930s in the United States, and in England, it was found that 1 of 3 humans had tuberculosis actively infecting their adrenal glands on autopsy, even though they were asymptomatic. So once again, we could benefit from the wild oregano oil. Now, with the depression, we might take a look at cannabis. We could take a look at the crude extract instead of the butane hexane extracted CBD. We might not want the hype. We might want to find a company that makes just the supercritical extract and does nothing else. There is a supplement, though, that also contains hops and chamomile called Hempenol PM, which I've used successfully for anxiety, neurosis, nervousness, agitation, obsessive compulsive. Yes, it will knock you into REM sleep. That's its purpose with the hops, chamomile, and the hemp together. But it is effective for midday anxiety also. Yeah, might think about
that's
that.
awesome. Awesome. Yeah, and I think you got me onto the meat oregano combo. I eat a lot of grass-fed beef and elk and bison and venison, and
What did I get you
I
onto?
well, eating more red meat, because I think when I met you, I was
Oh,
vegetarian, and so you kind of inspired me to add back in high quality meat. And you mentioned B vitamins. I feel like a lot of people that are suffering, if they just added in red meat for the B vitamins and protein and stuff,
yeah.
plus oregano, that's an awesome
It
combo.
is an awesome. There's no question, especially liver, of course, which is a bit of a challenge unless we can get organic, 100% organic. But there is no question that there's a density of nutrients in meat. There are the pantothenic acid and thiamine is high in flesh. There's a fair amount of well, obviously B12 a little bit, but more in the organ meats. Uh, if we supplement the vegetables, which are rich in folic acid and riboflavin, niacin, but niacin's very high in red meat, you see. So that's the beauty of a balanced diet, where you take your grass-fed burger, you might put a little cheese on it, which has nutrients. Then you have your salad, dark leafy greens, and a bit of fruit. You've really done a great job of supplying a wide range of key nutrients that our friends, the vegans, are missing, and it'd be difficult for them to get the density, and they can't. And they're also having some trouble getting the amino acids. So it's not uncommon that I will tell our vegan associates who are so curious about preserving their health, just to pray on it a little bit. Pray and think about it, and see if maybe eating a little bit more of a wide variety might not be better for your health. I I had alienated one little girl, but I did the right thing. I said, "Look, you're an animal too, and if you kill yourself, then what good is your savior, approach to the other animals?" So, and that's the truth, and so a more balanced diet would be better than veganism, like semi-vegetarianism. At least we would get the eggs and the cheese, the yogurt and the quark and that type of thing. Yeah, it would be better.
I love it. And I like putting the Oregamax capsules. I'll break open two, three, four on my meal,
On the
and that's
meal,
perfect.
yeah. That's a great way to do it. But I will add that sometimes our vegan associates will go with the Purely Pack and the Polar Power. They won't do the meat, but they'll take the supplements after they pray and think about it that contain the cofactors and they could, if they just did the Purely Pack and the Polar Power, they could do the veganism okay. Wouldn't be the greatest, but be okay. If they didn't do it, they couldn't do the veganism okay. That's how serious it is. So some do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Raw egg yolks have changed my life. I feel like that almost has every nutrient. There's so many nutrients in that
Yeah,
thing.
raw
It's
egg yolks
amazing.
are great. And if you get three, it's a pretty good way to get some of the nutrients. You would not get your balanced sort of RDA unless you had your three or four yolks. I knew one doctor that had a half a dozen a day. We did the assess the book called How to Live Long, and written in 1910, and they found four things that the village primitives consumed that caused them to live 100 years plus, 95 plus, and still be in vital health. One, of course, there was exercise. Usually it was walking at least a half hour a day up the mountains and down the trails. But two foods were animal, two were vegetation, one was sunflower seeds, one was fruit. What kind of fruit category do you think it was? Would be
Stone,
longevity, huh?
stone fruit,
It would be
melons.
what else? Little one,
Uh, grapes, like
littler, tinier.
berries.
Berries. They found that the routine consumption of berries was associated with longevity. Even if they made sugar compote, jellies, however way they could get the berry acids in, and then yogurt, and then raw eggs. They used to puncture them and suck the whole thing out. And I
Wow,
mean, the cooking facilities in 1910 weren't the greatest in the mountains, right, in the Caucasus. So you have that type of stuff.
that's
And
awesome.
the nut was sunflower seeds. So that's the four.
I
But
wonder
my
if it was the
point is
vitamin
that
E. Yeah.
you need the nutrients, and the village
Mhm.
people of that time found out that they needed the cholesterol. They didn't know this. They needed the berry nutraceuticals. They needed the vitamin E and B vitamins and sunflower seeds. They needed the calcium and phosphorus and acidic probiotics in the yogurt, and the amino acids, and the amino acids in the egg, and the vitamin D in the egg. So we lost the science of nutrition to trends and fads and uh, sort of spiritual representations. What the Maharishi does, what this one does, instead of just looking at it strictly from the science of nutrition. And so I'm not gonna promote a fad. Uh, if you're
I
gonna hear
love
it
it.
from me, you're gonna hear it that's scientific. You have to have your amino acids to build protein. You have to have your cholesterol to coat the nerves. You must have your natural vitamin D to, transfer your calcium and prevent bone loss. These types of things.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends doing the carnivore diet, and it's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you're cutting out a bunch of plant toxins and maybe how they're grown, synthetic fertilizers and stuff, but there's still important things in the fruit, vitamin
Oh
C
yeah.
for one. It's
Yeah,
like,
no, there's no doubt. And the berry
yeah.
acids, they're
Mhm.
extremely sophisticated in their anti-tumor properties, and they're also excellent for cardiovascular health. But,
Mm.
uh, still, even though I follow that sort of whole food diet, I still take my supplements. I'm not
Mhm.
sure where mine are right here, but I still take my spruce. Where is it? Get it over here. I take my hemp alive. I take my heart alive. So I take my botanicals. This is from Purely Wild. Did you try any of the Purely Wild stuff?
I'm loving it. I have the spruce and the pine resin. I haven't tried the cream yet. That one
For
looks
the
really
cream, yeah.
cool, the spruce cream.
So this
Mm.
way I can get my wild hawthorn raw, and I need that. You need that for cardiovascular health, along with the wild highbush cranberry. And then I take my hemp alive. This I got to have this. This is mycelized hemp crude extract. No butane, huh? Lighter fluid, no propane. And that's got the spruce, the pine, and the hemp together. Then I take my pine alive and spruce alive, and then I use the spruce alive cream on the face and the hands. Yeah, we got to
I
try
lo-
some of that.
I love it. And I wanted to go into dental a little bit because from my research, it's like a really big deficiency in K2 and potentially calcium from not enough dairy and stuff. But the resins and the oregano are incredible for any dental problem, really, right?
Yeah, I would say that the oregano is the kingpin for the dental health. It must
Mm.
be some of those resins, flavonoids, and phenolic compounds. It's erasing the plaque. It seems to corrode the streptococcus down to nothing. I don't think we know all it's doing. That tremendous explosion when you put it on the gums and the big heat, it must be devastating to those pathogens. So it's activating also the circulation with that heat. But yeah, the oregano, and I'd say another one is clove bud oil, and then yet another is cinnamon resin, oleo resin. They're all excellent. There's a product called Oregadent. Did you hear of it?
Yeah, I think that's on the way. I want to try that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
because you've got the cinnamon, the clove, and the oregano resins, and we have many reports of people who have chronic root canal problems or abscess teeth or pyorrhea or certainly plaque, and they seem to benefit immensely. And then they have this Orega Fresh toothpaste. So you combine using the toothpaste with the sage, the rose, sage, oregano, clove, I think, in the non-glycerin base. So between that and the Oregadent, we could perhaps avoid invasive dentistry. We might even be able to keep the cavities under control, so we don't have to repeatedly get more fillings. Not good.
The root canals are gnarly.
Oh, you basically with root canals, you make a pocket for germs to thrive, and then you cap it so they can't escape. A cavity is the way the body tries to leak out the germ. What's
Wow. So can you take like the P73, just the oil, and just do a few drops and just rub it along your
One
gums
could
as a
just
maintenance
use
thing?
oil of oregano and be
Mm.
satisfied with that on as a
Mhm.
dentifrice, an inexpensive one, and not buy into toothpastes and oregadent. But for the extreme case, the clove plus cinnamon and oregano would be, extremely ideal. But but the bottom line is, if we have foci of infection, if we have deposits of anaerobic or septic bacteria locked up here, it it can cause not only sickness but even uh, serious conditions like heart disease, mitral valve prolapse, heart attacks, coronary emboli, and cancer. So
It's through the
Especially
meridians
about
of the
people
teeth,
getting
right?
dental cleanings, who get root canals, who get invasive drilling, and they have this disseminates into the bloodstream, and then these plaques of bacteria settle on the heart, or they settle inside the coronary arteries,
Wow.
or they go into the arteries of the brain. So, at the minimum, even if you have to get invasive dentistry, you really should be using like the oregano or the oregadent or what have you.
Awesome. And I wanted to touch on first aid too. I don't go out into the woods without my homemade colloidal silver and a little bottle of oregano because I
Yeah.
feel like those are so versatile.
Well, the
Do you get
oregano oil has tremendous utility in the wilderness or outdoors, because not only is it good colloidal silver, it also is antiseptic. But so you get a cut, you put it on. But what if you got a sunburn? You're not going to use silver. You have to use oregano oil. It'll eat the sunburn. It'll eat the blister. It'll prevent it from forming. What if you get bit by a scorpion or a snake, or God forbid, a Gila monster or something like this that has a dangerous venom? You saturate that with the oregano oil, and you constantly saturate that, and you kill the venom. On a lesser scale, bee sting, hornet, brown recluse, black widow, all of which have frightened us, wasps. So you take the super strength oregano oil, you saturate a cotton or a telfa or something like this, or a band-aid, put a lot, and you put the pressure, and you keep that pressure constant 12 hours, then repeat the bandage. And especially for hornet bites, which can be really devastating, or mud daubers, and they hit you and attack you and hit you and hit you and hit you. So you just put a little oregano oil is not going to do it. You have to actually saturate and keep it on 24 hours, um, to neutralize the venom and the inflammation. You have also the for those swimming where you have jellyfish, the oregano will neutralize. So any rattlesnake neutralize any venomous, it's going to take it out. But what if you're out in the wilderness or whatever, and your friend gives you a bag of nuts and it's got peanuts, and you're allergic and you didn't think about it, you eat it and you have anaphylactic shock? What are you going to do if you're an hour and a half away from any city, or you're
oregano?
on the boundary waters canoeing or fishing or what have you? You're going to drop dead off the canoe? No, you take the oregano oil, and it will neutralize the anaphylaxis every time. Not one time, all times. So if the throat starts to close off, like I had the guy, he got bit in the ear by a bee. We were in the mountains. We were 2 hours from Beirut. We were studying the village of honeys. They make these wild honeys in the mountains. And the bees got out and he nailed this guy, and he fell flat to the ground in anaphylactic shock. So I said, no worry. I had a bottle of the oregano. Like you say, I don't go anywhere without it. I pried open his mouth. I squirted some in there. I saturated his earlobe, and he got up in 10 minutes. He was fine. So we've seen that
Wow.
repeatedly. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how it's of all, like, you have Purely Wild and North American Urban Spice, and just the oregano product is my favorite of all of them,
It
just
is.
because it's so
The
multi-use. Like,
oregano's
you
number
need,
one.
Mhm.
God said so. Purge yourself with the hyssop and all that stuff.
But I am obsessed with the resins right now. Can you talk about, because they have different anti-infection properties than the
Well, the
oregano, right? And it
resins,
kind of works.
um, those the trees secrete those and excrete those, so that if there's a wound, the bugs and the bugs and the pathogens can't damage the tree. They are mild antiseptics, but spruce is a good anti-parasitic. It seems to stimulate digestion. It's pretty good for H. pylori. It coats the stomach and seems to help kill it, but it's not going to compare to oregano for that. But as a digestive aid and as a way to heal or repair the stomach, you would want it. You would want to add that. The spruce is more of a regenerative, isn't it? So that's a resin, there's no doubt. But yes, it's going to help prevent infection in a wound and help. But it's going to act more like uh, regenerating the cells, so that the cells can seal off the stump or the wound or the ulcer or the bed sore. But I know that when we kept it raw, because you have this spruce alive, right? And in the raw state, it is effective for whole body regeneration, case history. And on my Facebook, there was a woman who had fulminant chronic dermatitis from being a hairdresser for 25 years, from the coal tar and the petrochemical dyes and from the chemicals. So it went away. The dermatitis it was toasted by the spruce. But she took it internally.
Wow.
So it acted that way to send its hormones and its BCP and its specialized spruce components to the tissues that are sick. So when the tree is wounded and has a scar, so the tree says, look, I'm supposed to go for 350 years to help the human race, right? I'm not just going to kick the bucket because a chainsaw accidentally hit me. I'm sending my spruce warriors. So now it lives to be 300 years regardless. You see the point? It has the intelligence so that if this human being is sick, down for the count, and you take the raw spruce internally, then the intelligence goes to the area of the disease or sickness and deals with it. Pine is a little different. Pine would be more of an anti-parasitic, a deworming agent. It's also exceptional for the skin, but it's not so much for the cellular regeneration, although it does that. So those are the two resins that, because look, you can eat a pine tree, honest to God. The natives used to harvest the bark during 4 seasons for making bread, a terrible bread, by the way. Oh, I shouldn't say. No, the Vikings used to make pine bread, you see. So all parts of the spruce and pine tree are edible.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that awesome. And can you just take, because I've seen out in the woods just the resin coming out of a tree.
Take it and chew on it.
Just take and chew on it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you cook it, then you destroy most of the medicinal. You have to have it either you just eat it or you chew on it or you take it in a crude extract. Most people aren't going to go around.
The purely wild is cold extracted, right? Or
you take the crude extract raw from the tree and you just emulsify it with a special technique into drops. There's no heat of any kind.
That's incredible.
Or it's micellized. Micellized like this particular one that has all 3 in there. Micellized means you take sunflower seed, vitamin E, and a couple other natural substances, and you make it water miscible. So no, I don't. If I told you that dandelions are good for you, would you believe that?
Sure.
You would. Yeah. Now, if I told you we're going to go pick about 2 bushel baskets full of dandelion leaves and roots, they're good for you. But now we're going to make an extract. So let's go get 2 liters of the gasoline in the garage, in the cabin, and we're going to put a big ceramic tub, and we're going to pour the gasoline and then put all the dandelion roots and leaves and jam it all down. But we got to leave it sit for 2 weeks. Then we're going to get an apparatus, and we're going to slowly burn that gasoline off. We're not going to do it in a way that'll blow up, but just make it vaporize. So we end up with a dark green powder. Would you eat it?
Sounds like a fertilizer.
Fertilizer, but it's still earthworm. You're not going to eat it. Come on. You're not going to eat it if it's in a capsule. It's got gasoline residue. They burned it off.
That's wild.
So that's what you're doing when you have a hexane extract.
Crazy. Jeez. And when I put those resins in my mouth, I would imagine they seal up the gums and the teeth. It just, my mouth says like yes whenever I
That's right.
take the resins.
The mouth loves the resins. And then now this Spruce Alive cream, it tightens everything. So imagine for the wrinkles and all that nonsense. But put it on and you feel this tightening from the gum resin. So that's a pretty sophisticated. And that has the pine and the spruce together with the essential oils and I don't know what's in there, lavender, rosemary. I don't know, but I'm not much of a cream person, but now I am. I love how it feels. And why not? I suppose we are all going to croak one of these days. That's one thing we can't get away from. But why not have, even when you're dead, look good? Maybe
That's
you could
awesome.
preserve yourself like the Pharaoh or something. I don't know. But you weren't trying to do that. It just incidentally happened at the, you know?
I gotta try it. Speaking of that, skin conditions, I get so many questions. I have vitiligo. Vitiligo is a big
Would be
one.
great.
Acne, and
Yeah.
all these things internally, right? I
Well,
mean,
you want
it's
black seed oil for vitiligo.
mm.
Take 2 tablespoons a day, and maybe you put some black seed oil in chaga, wild chaga cream. Go there and look, AmericanWildFoods.com. They have the wild chaga cream. They should have spruce cream or purely wild, whatever. I have stuff too. I don't have much for supplements. I need to change that, but because nobody would bother with me and they ignored me, I said, well, if you're going to do like that, I'm going to make my own company. So I made Purely Wild Naturals. And I put what I find in the wilderness. So I found the hawthorns and it made me feel great. So I put the hawthorns. So I found the spruce and the hemp. I put the spruce and the hemp. So I found the rose hips extract. For that, you should try that sometime. And the wild plum. What is all? There you go. So I took that wild rose hips. You see? Tastes like liquid rose. And the raw. So there's vitamin C in there. 70% of the RDA and 2 teaspoons. I just had 70% of my RDA. There's a little camu in there to fortify it, but that's fantastic. And I don't know. I think I mentioned the raw plum. So
I
that.
love it.
Look.
What do you?
Hmm?
Go ahead.
How are you going to get well with just chemicals? You have to have the raw nature.
Yeah,
And
for
ideally,
sure.
it has to be raw. This is raw. This is raw. This is raw. All raw.
It seems like the plant compounds for the skin, right? And then the animal nutrients like fat soluble vitamins to fortify, but to kill off all the infections, it's like the oregano components, the pine, the spruce, that
Yep.
gets in there deep, right? And cleans
That
up the
does get
system.
in pretty deep, whether it's the
Mm.
skin with the spruce alive cream or taking internally the pine alive, the spruce alive, and the oil of oregano. Then those deal with the fungi, the bacteria, the parasites. And it's the spruce and the pine are pretty specific for parasites. Mild antifungals. When you want to get into antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial, of course, that's going to be the oregano. So there's that.
Okay, awesome. Have you ever, kind of an interesting question, have you ever experimented with turpentine? Because I used to take that in really small amounts, the pure stuff, and it's kind of like a nuke, right?
It would be a nuke. I'm cautious to use things that could have potential side effects, and there are certain people who've reacted to turpentine, being that it's a distillate, a heavy, high temperature distillate. So, though I do appreciate what people were trying to do with turpentine, I would much rather eat the pine resin, as you find out growing out there, or to take the pine alive. And maybe it takes longer. Maybe it doesn't nuke the tapeworm within 15 minutes, but at least there's no way anybody could react to it, right?
Yeah, that's smart. And so these actually will hit the tapeworm and
Well,
the
it's the
ropeworm
same
or the
thing. It's just that the pine turpentine's heavily distilled.
mm,
And they're also not taking the sap that comes out. They're taking the whole inside sap of what in other words, this is specifically a compound that the tree sends when the tree's wounded. So it's slightly different than the internal sap that they use for turpentine. So this is
interesting.
where you have to harvest the gum resin on the outside.
Mm.
And that you can, when in this form, you can take and drink the whole bottle twice a day and try to get your turpentine effect without having to buy turpentine.
Sounds a lot safer.
Well, it is a lot safer, and I don't know
Uh,
if there are human fatalities since the turpentine craze developed in the last 10 years, but I found some cases, case histories on the internet where people got sick, chronically sick from taking turpentine for 2 months or a month. Yeah.
I think that and kerosene were developed in the South during slavery times as like almost like a backup medicine.
They
In the
were, and then of course you got to
yeah,
remember the weird thing with turpentine is they demand that you pour it on a sugar cube, and sugar's
right.
poison. So what are we doing anyway? We're trying to get the worm to act to the sugar and then act to the turpentine. I'm just not into that kind of thing. I appreciate it, but I don't do it.
Right. And then what's your Candida protocol? I think you might have written a
For
book on it, right? Or
candida, I should write a book just on candida. Is going to be the oil of oregano, maybe the oregabiotic slow release, bit of spruce and pine if you want. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
okay, awesome.
Probiotic at night. Take
Hmm.
care. But
Are you open to like a quick rapid fire Q&A? Just like
from who?
quick from my friends and followers.
Where are they at?
Uh, oh, I have the questions here,
All right,
just
go
written
ahead.
down. Yeah. Best way to treat toenail fungus.
They have to use the oregano. They use a lot of it. You take
Mm,
the super strength or this ultra one, and you take 2, 3 dropperfuls twice a day, and you rub it on and cut the nails back. And some people will take this Oregarest material and take about 4 twice a day, and that's it.
okay, awesome. Osteochondroma, small cartilage growth on the side of my finger. I've been trying to heal it from the outside.
That they could take the oregano oil super strength and saturate a massive amount. Take the spruce and the pine internally if they want to, oregano oil internally, juice of oregano internally, all that, but saturate a massive amount, tape it on, and that just keep that burning that thing into oblivion. Yeah.
Awesome. The raw or crude herb of oregano compared to the extracted forms, the juice, the tinctures, what's the
Well, I'm a
difference
big
there?
fan of the oregano juice because it's still a kind of a crude extract, but it is
Mm,
steam distilled. It's water soluble. It goes into the brain beautifully. But the crudest extract is going to be super critical. And if you want to get that, I noticed that they put that in the hempenol. The hempenol super strength has supercritical oregano with supercritical hemp. So that's one way. Another way is this is Zolvet. It's called is just pure supercritical hemp or oregano in olive oil base. Another way is the ground oregano, which is Oregamax. They just pulverize the wild oregano and put it in a capsule. But it all of it's relatively crude because it's either steam distilled, CO2 extraction, or ground up. Nothing done to it.
no butane.
No.
Awesome. Is there any possibility that oregano could be harsh for the gut in certain cases if there's damage to the gut lining, etc.?
Well, there were a number of studies which demonstrated that in leaky gut and in damaged intestinal membranes, oregano reversed it.
Wow.
The oregano increased the SOD, the glutathione S transferase, and the body healed itself. No. I
Incredible.
mean, it's a little strong on the stomach. If you were to
Mm.
drink if you were to take 2 or 3 bottles of oil of oregano, 2 or 3 1 ounce bottles, dump it in a cup and drink it. I mean, I could do it. It might be a bit strong. You might want
It's
to
like going
take
to the
it
bar.
and eat a full meal or something. But
Right. Drinking moonshine.
I mean, is oregano going to hurt my liver? They say on the internet. Who is they anyway? I mean, there were. I've published a PowerPoint I'll put online. I hope where I show probably 6 studies where the liver was damaged and scarred and inflamed, and liver enzymes were up because they artificially damaged the liver to do a test on rats and mice. And then they gave the oregano oil carbacrol, and everything was reversed to normal. Even the scars got eaten out of the liver from the oregano. Why is it going to hurt anybody?
Yeah, people are just
And I
cautious, I guess. They're afraid, but that's a natural substance.
natural
Yeah.
substance, wild in the mountains, growing in a rarefied area, clean, pure, hand picked. How could it? That's going to hurt you. Does anybody ask? What could I have if I have them add 3 tablespoons on my pizza? Or, if I have 16 or 20. If I have 6 beers, what's the side of? I mean, nobody asks some questions like that. Or I was
Uh,
thinking about drinking the whole bottle of wine. They drink it anyway. They don't ask anybody. How about hard liquor? God, that stuff, I can't even go near it. It make you know. But did people drink it all the time? They don't ask anybody. Well, they ask about oregano oil, though. Does that make sense?
It's a weird psychological thing that people have. Yeah, they don't
They don't ask
question.
about the medication. Is it okay to take 10 medications at once, doctor? I never had anybody ask me such a thing. Instead, they ask me, can I take oregano during pregnancy, nursing? Is it harmful to take black seed oil? What can I take Oregamax if I'm pregnant? Stupid questions. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, they're not stupid, but
Right.
you know what I mean. They're just a
Yeah.
bit silly.
On the same track, can you give it to animals like cats, for example? I have a cat. I've never given her oregano yet, but I should.
Well, the cats get worms, right?
Mhm.
Shouldn't we give them something routinely like Oregamax to try to reduce those worms?
Smart.
Say oregano juice also. What are we gonna
Just
do?
on their wet food.
Your chaga is a food. Your oregano is a food. Your rosemary is a food. Your spruce was a food. The pine is a food. Shut up. Enough.
I love it. Cream of tartar for Candida. Have you looked into
Why
that?
would anybody take a semi-synthetic stub substance? What for? Maybe you
Yeah.
should put some hydrogen peroxide with some turpentine and some cream of tartar and drink it down the hatch. What are you doing? You know, you can go buy a bit of oregano oil or spruce extract, pine extract, oil of cumin. Take all you want. You want to drink the whole bottle? Go for it. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to hurt
Yeah.
the germs, the parasites. It'll hurt them big time. Yeah.
Potassium bitartrate. I've never even heard of
Why?
cream of tartar. That doesn't
Why?
sound good. Yeah.
Hydrogen peroxide, potassium bitartrate, tartaric acid. What else did you say? Cream of tartar, little talcum powder. What else can we put
Little
in the
butane.
fruit? You know, a little turpentine. Stir it all up. I mean, what in the world is going on? Little
Someone
colloidal
asked,
silver. Oh, colloidal silver, okay, but it's still silver. It's still a metal.
yeah,
You know,
I only use that topically. I'm kind of wary
topically,
ingesting that stuff. Yeah.
topically understood. Somebody has to
Why
take it
would,
for a sore throat for a short period. That's not. But why are we doing it? We
yeah.
have oregano oil. We don't need any of that thing.
Right.
Much more effective.
Why would my skin itch after taking a dose of oregano oil?
Well, they
Asking
must
that.
be so full of fungus that they're fighting back. If it's the real quality wild oregano, I have had the occasional person taking the farm raised and they get reactions, but we have to find out
Okay.
what they're taking,
Hmm.
and we'd know more that way. But
Okay.
if the way they'll know that they're not allergic to, I don't know what kind of oregano oil they're taking, but if they'll know, they rub the oregano oil on the skin. If that causes inflammation and itching and it persists, then maybe they're sensitive, whatever. But if they don't get any reaction to that, then they can keep taking it.
Awesome. Yeah, I tend to avoid the super strength topically and just use
Why
the
are you
regular
doing
strength.
that? You should use all the super strength you can get your hands on.
Really? Okay, it's
Yeah,
very
rub it
strong.
in. Just rub it in. Rub it
I'll man
until you
up.
start burning up.
I'll man up then. Okay. How much oregano should one take to clear up candida? I guess they're
Well,
talking about the
candida is
juice.
not that difficult on the question on oregano. So,
Mhm,
5 or 10 drops twice a day is fairly sufficient. If
mhm.
it's a tough case and you want to take 20 drops twice a day or 3 times a day, that's more than enough, really, for candida. Candida is vulnerable to oregano, highly vulnerable.
Awesome.
Now, there may
Rheumatoid
be some rare tough cases where the people have taken repeated doses of antibiotics and they develop stealth pathogens and cell wall deficient candida. That's different. That may need a dropper full 3 times a day. That type.
and the oregano breaks up the shield, right? The
That's right.
biofilms.
It destroys it.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
categorically.
Wow.
And that was
Um,
demonstrated by Georgetown University. But I demonstrated it years ago, about 2000 and 2003, and they refused to publish it. The lab said we're not
Jeez,
publishing it. I mean, I don't know what they were doing, but
that's wild. Rheumatoid arthritis and oregano. I saw your lecture. I was fortunate.
you rub it in.
Yeah.
And you take
Okay.
the oregano juice, oregano oil of oregano, all that. But yeah, just you keep rubbing it in, rub it in, rub it in, rub it in, put a stop to that inflammation and stop that degeneration.
Awesome.
There's
And
some
small
evidence that
children.
there's an
Oh, sorry.
amoeba inside the joint capsule eating it. Yeah,
Whoa.
that's not good.
Wow. Yeah, I was just researching the odontoblasts and how they create osteocalcin using K2. And like all of these cells like in the bones and the teeth, they use K2. It's so interesting.
They do, and oregano is
And-
rich in K, vitamin K. So is sage and
Mhm.
rosemary. A teaspoon could contain 15 to 20% of the RDA. So if you open up
Wow.
4 Oregamax capsules, you got 20% right there.
That's incredible. Wow. um, small children oregano use, just I would imagine use less of it, maybe just a little less.
They
Or
have produced I've seen that the company has produced Oregacin, which is a cinnamon oregano combination. So one could use as much of that as one wanted. But on the highly potent oil, a couple of drops twice a day, or rub on the feet and the shins, 5 drops twice a day if you have to, 5 drops 3 times. The infection is the problem for the children, not the oregano. So use what you have to use.
okay, and this is an awesome question. How does oregano
You think the body's going to say, "Oh, you gave me 10 drops. I'm going to get hurt." I think we are been trained by pharma. I don't know what, you know, it's been a loss for the humankind.
Yeah,
Well,
people are afraid.
nobody says, "Hey, doctor, what's in that injection you're about to give my baby? Is there formaldehyde really in there? Is there aspartame? Is there aluminum salt? Are there any mercurial compounds? Are there live germs? What are you going to inject in my child?" Oh no. Oh, you can you give an osteopathic treatment to a child, or can you give oregano oil? Are you sure? How about raw honey? Oh no. Are you crazy? How many thousands of years have they been giving raw honey from the beekeeper to the babies? Unbelievable what happened there. I know the researchers that promoted that falsitude.
Wow.
Debated one of them and won the debate. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, I got
Raw honey never fed sugar. The
right.
sugar in those days in the 60s was from rat dropping tainted white sugar and molasses. And if they did find a little botulism spores in the honey when those infants died of who knows what, botulism of some kind, it would have been from the rat droppings in commercial honey. So get me out of here. I don't eat commercial honey.
That's incredible. Yeah, I got the Tdap vaccine. I like that you talk about those. When I went to private university, was it diphtheria, pertussis, and
Diphtheria,
tetanus? And
pertussis, and
I was so sick.
oh, you got
it
that
was
poison?
it was years ago, but I was slamming cracked chlorella, and
Oh,
I
you
don't think
did?
it did anything.
That helped
I don't know.
detox you?
I mean, I felt like crap for like 4 or 5 days, like just headache, kind of woozy, not really stable in
Well,
my feet.
they got you good.
Yeah. I think the live viruses are the scariest part.
They are the
I mean, you talk.
scariest part. So many people say,
Yeah.
well, autism's from mercury, but you're forgetting that they're injecting the children with biologically active viruses. And you're not going to get them well until you kill kill the pathogens.
Mhm.
Oh, but what about that oregano oil? It's so what? If you get the real good kind, the oil of oregano and the juice, you give it to the autistic children, and get it in them somehow. Strap them
Yeah.
down and pour it in somehow. Well, not, get it in them.
This is a question from my friend Beverly, and this is probably my favorite one. I grow tobacco. I think that the paste ambil has benefit, and the crap stuff. Even American Spirit sucks and stuff. But she asked, how does oregano compare to clove and tea tree and other parasite herbs like tobacco? Like to me, tobacco is one of the strongest. But
Well, tobacco does
yeah.
poison nicotine and stuff,
Mhm,
parasites.
mhm.
If you're going to use a homegrown tobacco, then you should use the oregano and the clove with it. If you compare, the oregano is not the best anti-parasitic. Clove is a superior one. What was the other one you mentioned?
She said tea tree.
Tea tree you can't take internally. I had a case of a
Mm.
fellow who got into kidney failure from internal consumption. 10 drops a day almost killed him. Not to be taken internally. No way.
Jeez.
Always topical.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
You shouldn't even take a
Yeah.
drop a day. You can use it on your gums. That's the end of it.
Okay, awesome. Let
Clove
me
bud is
see.
more potent for tapeworms than oregano. Oregano is good
Okay,
for single cell, amoeba, blastocystis, cryptosporidium.
that's good to know. Okay. This is a good one. Hearing loss, fungus in the ears, plugged up, tinnitus, things like that.
Very difficult.
Mhm,
If it's fungal, maybe high dose juice of oregano, oil of oregano, and oregarest, maybe a chance. But
mhm.
we don't know how much damage is in the cochlea at this point, and I don't know what to do for hear loss. I myself got unless it's fungal, then it'll open up. I got uh, blown out in an airplane, so I have to figure out how to get this hearing back because the airplane killed the one ear. So
Wow.
one of those weird.
Yeah. I know earplanes. A lot of people wear those,
I'm
and my
wearing
dad
one
got
now.
tinnitus from shooting.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
helps.
Jeez. Tinea versicolor, bad breath, athlete's foot, early balding, and dandruff. Are those all signs of
Mr.
Candida?
Fungus or Mrs. Fungus? Mr. Fungus. Uh, you got to hit the oil. You got to hit the pine and the spruce for the immune system, and you're going to need the multiple spice. Uh, that's all.
Okay. And then someone's asking length of treatment for Lyme and Candida.
Oh, it would
Um,
be about 90 days really for Lyme disease. No, I mean Lyme disease could be 6 months to a year, but uh, but for Candida, 90 days is enough. Yeah.
okay. Awesome. Get, getting rid of a wart and what causes it.
The wart is caused by papillomavirus and has to be you saturate the wart with oregano oil. You saturate the cotton, you saturate and you can keep 24 hours contact to kill it, and you take it internally. Use the super strength or the high carvacrol type. Yeah,
Awesome. I'm moving out to the pretty much the middle of nowhere, so it sounds like I should get a lot of organic cotton balls, and then
definitely
have
get some
some
organic
oregano.
cotton and some telfa pads because as soon as you get bit or whatever, you want to saturate and put it on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
so
winning
as long as
combo,
you
the
have
cotton
the
and the oregano.
oregano oil or the oregano ultra, you really don't need any other emergency medicine. That's
Wow,
that's all you need to carry with you at all times. Yeah,
amazing.
I think
Itch bum, and I've tried everything.
itching
Had it for
bum.
about 6 years.
Itchy bum,
Yeah.
you've got to worry about fungus. You got to worry about pinworms too. It depends if the
Mm,
itchy bum is right around the rectum, then it's going to be worms. Such a person
mhm.
would benefit immensely from pine and spruce. Certainly oil of oregano, certainly juice of oregano, certainly the multiple spice extract. We use the multiple spice extract for parasitic. Yeah. Some people want
Okay,
to try some
awesome.
oil of clove buds. If you go to the people
Mm,
at oreganol.com or americanwildfoods.com, you should see oil of clove buds there. So they could try that, I would think, for the itchy bum if there's
awesome.
worms.
Awesome. I haven't taken clove. I'm interested now in getting on
I
it
would
to try
definitely
that.
take it
Mhm.
just as an
Yeah.
antiparasitic.
Mhm. That's awesome. Well, we're almost at the end here. UTI and
UTI,
want to avoid antibiotics.
we're going to support that system the best way we can. Obviously, your cranberry, there's a wild cranberry called cran flush. That's all good, but they still need your oregano. Your Oregamax, which happens to have the Rus coriaria, would be a great support. The oil of oregano, a dropper full 3 or 4 times a day. That's basically all you need to do. But spruce and
Awesome.
pine are always good for the urinary tract.
Perfect. Okay. For the chickens, should I use the fresh oregano tincture,
The chickens
burst
benefit from the
treatment?
oregano juice. They benefit from the oil. They benefit from the fresh herb. They have so many viruses and pathogens, the more the better for the chickens. Yeah.
Yeah, there
You
was
know about
recently, I think
goats,
they
right?
euthanized.
The goats, they have to
Mm.
fence them off over there in Turkey and such because if they don't, the goat herds will eat all the oregano and there wouldn't be any for us. Yeah.
They know.
Good. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's so sad that I think modern farming just sucks. They don't know about these remedies.
No,
Like they just euthanized like 1 million chickens here in California, I think earlier this year, just because they got some stupid virus they could have wiped out with
yeah,
oregano.
they could have taken care of that, but I don't know. Maybe they'll listen one day, whoever they are. All right.
Awesome, Castle. I think we covered it. Yeah, thanks so much for your
Okay.
time, and
All right.
hang on here and we'll close out the show.
All right. See you around, huh?
Cass Ingram. He's like an encyclopedia. I learned so much every time I talk to him. Hope you guys enjoyed that extensive Q&A. I thought those were great questions and great answers that he had for those. Oregano is so versatile. My favorite use for it is first aid and having it as an emergency medicine. It's good for so many things. Anaphylactic shock is one of the coolest. And definitely recommend you guys look at the resins too and experiment with spruce and pine resin if you feel inclined. I've been really enjoying those, and like I said, my mouth just lights up when I take those. Also check out Cass Ingram's products. I'll put the links below, but you can just go to Cass, C-A-S-S, Ingram, INGRAM.com. Check out his awesome books. He also has the Purely Wild supplements, which are really cool. That's where you can find the resins. And then if you go to NorthAmericanHerbandSpice.com, you could find that whole line of the P73 Truly Wild Oregano. And if you want to support my work and support the show, you can go to matt-blackburn.com, where I have all of my recommended products that I update regularly. And you can also support my brand, which is Mitolife. So it's mitolife.co. My favorite product is Dissolvitol, which is a blend of nattokinase and serrapeptase. These are systemic enzymes. And what differentiates my systemic enzymes from cheaper brands is that the capsule is phthalate free. And it needs to be enteric coated to make it into the small intestine and survive the stomach acid so that it can get into your bloodstream and circulate for 6 to 12 hours, cleaning up the fibrosis or scar tissue that's caused by iron overload, magnesium deficiency, PUFA toxicity. All of these things inflame the system. And so whenever we have inflammation, especially chronic, systemic, even low grade endotoxin, that will create scar tissue. So these enzymes are really cool because they go around and break that up. And it's like a cleanse. You don't need to take this forever, but you just get 1 or 2 bottles, maybe do a month, 3 capsules 3 times a day. That's generally what I do. And you feel it. A lot of people have reached out. I just had a friend reach out today saying his back pain went away with Dissolvitol, and then he ran out of the enzymes and his back pain came back. So he's probably doing something where he has to modify his lifestyle so that it's not constantly creating that pain in his back, but it is a pretty interesting tool that we can use. Today's quote is by John Muir. Climb the mountains and get their good tidings.